Today on r/entitled Parents. Is it wrong to keep my mother at bay while I plan my wedding? I, 24 female, grew up very close to my mother, 53 female. We were very close and we did a lot of activities together. She got divorced when I was little and has since remarried with the man I consider one of my role models in life, while still maintaining my connection with my bio dad. Over the years and since moving out of the house, I've noticed some very unsettling tendencies come out from the relationship I have with my mom. I met a man in college and we started dating. Everyone was introduced and things were great. This man is now my fiancé. As time went on and our relationship became more solidified and serious, my mom has started preferring that just myself come home to visit now. She complains about being a hostess and wanting to do whatever she wants to do and not have to wait on everyone by making meals, cleaning up after us, etc. I get confused by this since this started coming up. We were in college and living independently. We don't need to be cared for. I do have a younger brother in the home that still needs that kind of support, food, water, shelter. But I've been out of that phase for years. She had a mental breakdown at my college graduation because she saw my bio dad from a distance and refused to continue into the ceremony because it was all too much for her. My bio dad and my remarried father both get along great. No one has any issues except for her. She makes comments on vacations when it's just us, without my fiancé, about how this might be the last vacation like this. This is how it could have been, and it makes me so upset. I love my fiancé very much and want them to be included, but she makes all these remarks about the opposite. It's pushing me away. A week before I got engaged, she asked me privately if I could not post anything when I do get engaged because the thought of me being engaged makes her physically ill. And she asked if I could wait 2 years to get engaged because it would be more convenient for herself since she would be done with her master's program by then. I told her none of that is in my control, and it is a once-in-a-lifetime moment that I would like everyone to share in, so I cannot make that promise to not share it online with everyone. She started crying and listed all the problems she had with family members and socializing and big events. It was all about her. She refuses to get counseling and says God will get me through it. She clearly needs help and sees me as her confidant, but I can't help her when it involves putting my own life on hold. I tried to wait a little bit to tell her I got engaged when it happened, and I told her I had a date set. But as of right now she's had problems with my bridesmaids I picked out, the dates I have reserved, and doesn't even want me to try on any dresses with anyone, even if it's just for fun because it's a mother's thing. I want to give my bio dad some time during my wedding as well, walking down the aisle in a dance, but I know mother will throw a very strong opinion on that. At this point I am closer with my future mother-in-law, and will have her support instead. For our next story. Whenever my dad is sick he gets everyone in our family sick. Don't know what to do. Last year my dad got the flu, and he refused to quarantine himself, and then made us drive in the car with him with no AC. We all got the flu, and it was a horrible experience. He didn't seem bothered by the fact that he got everyone sick. In 2022 he went to Europe for work, and when he came back we asked him to quarantine because it was peak COVID. He said he didn't feel sick and refused to wear a mask, hugged all of us when he arrived, and then for the next 2 days touched everything in our house. He then tested positive for COVID. Luckily no one got sick, but we fought with him because we asked him to take precautions and he refused to. Now he's been feeling sick since Monday, and I asked him 5 times to get a COVID test and stay away from me because I was sick 2 weeks ago and I don't want to miss work again. I also have chronic health issues, so I don't need another illness on top of what I already have. Friday he decides to inform me that he knew one of his coworkers has COVID and interacted with him days ago. He refused to quarantine and touched everything in the kitchen this last week. He spent hours with my mom and sister in the car, continued going to work, and even went to a Broadway show while feeling sick. He coughed everywhere because of his reflux and never covered his mouth. He wouldn't get the COVID test. He drove in my car when I asked him not to because I don't want contamination. Then today he finally took the test and tested positive for COVID and was laughing about it. This whole week I have tried to stay away from him, wash my hands, eat separately, and wore a mask while my whole family made fun of me. I am livid because I have a horrendous immune system, and I don't understand how hard it is for him to comprehend that I don't want to get sick. I'm quarantining myself because he refuses to. I am starting to develop a fever and headache now. Truly at a loss for how to deal with him. Sometimes he acknowledges that he should have been more careful but then does it again. He told me he barely feels sick and doesn't understand that while he barely feels sick, I may get COVID and have much worse symptoms due to my health issues. Don't know what to do about him at this point. Let's dive into our next story. What do you mean I can't kick a paying guest out of their room? I, 31 female, work as a receptionist in a hotel in a small town on the Italian coast. Been doing this job for 4 years. Never before have we had to endure the arrogance of entitled parents like this year. When booking the stay we make it clear right away that check-in is not possible before 2:30 p.m. The hotel where I work has about 70 rooms, and we are constantly full, so the housekeeping staff needs a bit of time to clean the rooms, considering that checkout is by 11 in the morning. Our housekeeping staff is amazing, fast and efficient, but they still need a few hours to clean 70+ rooms. This year there have been dozens of instances where guests have shown up at 7 a.m., demanding that we give them their room early because we have small children who suffer in the heat. On several occasions, some of these arrogant pricks even suggested that we go and kick previous guests out of bed at 7 a.m. to make room for them in their spawn. How does one even think about suggesting such a thing? Were they raised by wolves? Aren't they disgusted with themselves to even suggest such a thing? What's up with these people and their massive narcissism? Also, these entitled a-holes scream all the time about how their small children can't withstand the heat, and that they need their rooms immediately. Like their poor planning is my concern. And then I see them dragging their newborn babies to the beach at noon sharp under the sun in a 40°C+ degree weather. Like, are you actually concerned about the safety of your kid or not? And is it really necessary to have a beach holiday in August, during a heat wave with such a small child and such poor planning? I'm so sick of these folks. They firmly believe that parenthood gives them a pass to be horrible to everybody, and have special privileges everywhere they go. Entitled parents are truly making the world a horrible place to live in. Edit to add, just last week I got called a WHORE by one of these entitled mommies because I wouldn't upgrade her room for free, because she had a baby, you know? The hotel was full. She wanted me to kick out another family who had regularly paid for their room with a view, just because she thought she was more deserving, being a mommy. Homegirl called me a WHORE in Hungarian thinking I wouldn't understand. The look on her face when I told her in English I don't really enjoy being called a WHORE. Madam was horrified to say the least. On to the next story. Handicapped people don't deserve a table to eat at in public. What would you have done in this scenario? I'm annoyed. I was shopping at Costco and my blood sugar unexpectedly went low. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I stopped in the Costco eating area for pizza and a smoothie. I'm parked at one of the indoor picnic tables sitting in my wheelchair. But I was clearly using the picnic table. I didn't want to eat messy food over my lap. Space for eating inside of the store is limited and Costco is packed due to it being summer here. Before I know it, a family of 3 comes and sits at my little picnic table. The wife scoffs at me saying I already had a place to sit, and proceeded to nod at my tiny manual wheelchair. She told me I didn't need the table, and that I should get up and leave so that her and her family would have a place to sit. Apparently I'm supposed to eat in my wheelchair with no table surface and super messy food. I'm not kidding, Costco has some of the messiest pizza you can eat. Pizza grease gets everywhere when you eat it. The woman stood there staring at me like she fully expected me to grab my wheels and roll away. But I had no desire to leave the table that I had found first. And on top of that, I really didn't particularly want to sit next to her screaming toddler. It was just a weird experience. I wouldn't have minded sharing my table if they asked me nicely. It would have been awkward and uncomfortable as heck. Who wants to sit with a bunch of uninvited strangers? I then had a brilliant idea. One thing that I buy as a female in bulk at Costco is feminine hygiene products. So I just smiled at this woman who fully expected me to move. I lifted my gigantic box of feminine hygiene products out of my shopping cart and plopped them up on my half of the table. They took up a good half of the picnic table because it was a big, bulky box of them. But they were very clearly marked. There was no mistaking what that box was full of. I smiled at the woman and I told her she could absolutely sit at my table with me. Her little girl read the box label and asked her mom what pads are for. Well, let's just say that was the end of that entitled woman. The woman gasped in horror and quickly ushered her little girl away from me. The girl was far too young to know what pads were used for yet. Clearly they couldn't sit next to a devil like me. I got to enjoy my unanticipated low blood sugar in peace. Normally low blood sugar makes me feel like absolute crap. But this time I felt quite pleased. Nobody should have to eat in their wheelchair. Handicapped people have a right to use the table too. Our last story for today. Entitled Mom at the Playground. This happened about 2 weeks back, but I finally remembered to post it. My little man is super active and loves the playground, so we are out there around 8:30 every single day it isn't raining. We are often the only ones there when we first get there, but sometimes there are other families there. Everyone has been super friendly and we all commiserate on how we need to get out early in the day before it gets too hot. We go there one day a few weeks ago around 8:30 and there is a mom and her 2 daughters, one of whom starts crying as soon as she sees us. Her mom explains that the younger daughter really has a hard time sharing the playground with anyone, and I commiserate that my little man has a hard time sharing toys, and it's just something we're working on. She says, "Yeah, but that's why we came so early, so no one else would be here." I say, yeah, we love mostly having the playground to ourselves so early, and it's nice there's not a ton of people here. To which she actually says, no, that's not what I mean, we're here early and my daughter doesn't want anyone else here. Could you leave and come back later? No, I'm not leaving the public playground because your daughter has a problem sharing an entire playground. I understand the daughter might have a disability, wasn't immediately obvious, but I know those aren't always easily observable. But that doesn't give you free run of public facilities and the right to ask others to leave. By the way, other families got there only about 15 minutes later, and she didn't bother asking any of them to leave, and her daughter did just fine after her initial meltdown. And I'm not using meltdown in a derogatory sense. My 16-month-old has a meltdown when I won't let him eat crayons. And those are all the stories we have for today. See you tomorrow.